Hooligans! We back. Yes, we are back. And it's going to be an interesting one. Because not only are we back, the league, the NFL season is back. Season opener tonight. But I'm not on my home turf. So apologies for the delay. They trying to keep us down. Didn't have power. Recording on my phone until my iPad charges up. We behind. I don't have my computer. But we got to keep it rolling. We got to persevere. Because season 12 starts today. We've had our draft. We're talking about that. We got other league business. We talking about that. And then we will unveil the first power rankings of the season 12. Alright? So apologies for the delay. I'm figuring this all out. But it's time. Hooligans year 12. Let's fucking go.
Best in the business when it comes to a quarterback sneak.
Let's go! 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 Let's go!
All right. So I'm about to lose my fucking mind. Doing this on the iPad, not the same beast. It's not the same beast. I've recorded this take right here. This take right here like 4 times already. And it's just not working. I don't know what I'm doing wrong. But that's okay. That's okay. It's only week 1. Our offense doesn't need to be operating at full throttle right now. We just need to know how to march down the field. We need to not make too many big mistakes. And we need to take advantage of the opportunities we do create. So that's what I'm doing, okay? I'm making it work on my phone. This might be clunkier than it usually is, but we're going to make it work. Might do some bouncing around from phone to iPad. Doesn't matter. We're going to make it work. We're going to get into that end zone. So, it is week 1. The season is starting. And we're going to get into it. We got some shit to talk about. So let's just dive in. Let's just dive in and enjoy the ride. Okay? Let's do it. On the agenda, we got about 4 or 5 things to talk about. We got league business. A bunch of little small things in there. Boba, can you cut it out, bud? Including punishments. We're going to review the draft. We're going to go into our first power rankings of the season. And then I'll also highlight the week 1 matchups. I'm going to have to add that because I don't have it on the slide currently. But we're going to get into that. So I think it's time to get season 12 underway. Okay, so first order of league business, very quick and simple. Waivers are back to normal. Everyone that should be available should be on the free agents list, and then it's just going to go back to how it's always been. Fab resets on Wednesdays, or the waivers go through on Wednesdays, and we'll talk about it on the podcast. So not going to waste any more time on that. Next up, we got rivalry week. Pretty straightforward. Week 11 is rivalry week. This will determine your bed selections. Except for Joe V, you'll automatically get last because you came in last year. But you'll be able to ruin your rival's bed selection. And we have our rivals right here. It's me and Chow. Fuck you, Chow. I ain't eating your Chinese sausage. Then we got Rick versus Ryan. We got the 2 Dans going head-to-head. I feel like it's not the first time they've been rivals. We have Joe V and Radler, Chris and Dick, and James and Andy. Sleeper built the schedule randomly. This is how it played out. So these are your rivals. Week 11. Start talking shit if you want. Really nothing you got to do, but here they are. Speaking of rivalry week, trade party. I'm going to start the booking process. I'm going to look to see if there's any other houses that can compete with the Cape House we had before, but that is available. So I'd say that's the leading contender right now. So do start to take time off for that day, that weekend. It is week 12, the weekend of November 23rd, the week before Thanksgiving. Make sure you book it in your calendars. You get your permission slip signed. Ideally, it's Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Head home Sunday. But if that doesn't work for you and it's just Friday, Saturday, Sunday, cool. But make sure you lock in those dates. With that said, do start sending your league dues. $230. I'm going to use that money to book the house. So yeah, money for the league, permission slips for the trade party. Very, very simple. Punishments. Okay. We got our punishments to talk about. And we agreed we'd be having a punishment. Now, I gotta be honest, I was supposed to have a form ready, but because my iPad has been dead, I don't have that form ready. But the way this will essentially work is we're going to have a list of options. I'll probably just explain this in text because I haven't made it yet and don't know exactly how it'll work. But essentially, I'm going to make a document. People can put ideas for punishments on there, and then everyone will have the option to veto things that they absolutely would never do and don't even think should be on the list. And if a thing on the list gets enough vetoes, we remove it, and that's how we'll have our list of punishments to work with. So, more info coming. We will have this all squared away before Sunday, I'd say, and we'll go from there. All right, draft review time. I'm going to try to go through this quick because I just did it, the whole thing. Just went through this whole thing, and it didn't work. It didn't upload. I'm losing my mind. I'm literally losing my mind. So I'm going to do this as quick as I possibly can. But the way this will work is I'm going to go through first just some risky draft picks that I noticed in the earlier rounds, some value picks, and then we're going to go through each of the best QB room, running back room, wide receiver room, and then a few of the worst. And then we'll get to our power rankings and then talk a little about week 1. So let's get into it. Okay, so first we are talking riskiest picks. These aren't necessarily bad picks, but definitely carry some risk. I think the best example of this is the second pick overall. A lot of us were surprised when Rick passed on Lamar Jackson for Jamar Chase. Jamar Chase is a fucking stud. I might have done the exact same thing, but definitely carries a lot of risk, especially for Rick, who, if you remember last year, went with a risky move and it bit him in the ass. Also, finish up, Rick had a risky second-round pick as well, going with Chase Brown, who would typically go much later in a super draft, super flex league, but he should be a fucking stud. He should be an absolute stud. Now that I'm saying that out loud, though, it does make it worse that he went with 2 risky picks in the first 2 rounds, and they're from the same team. Like, if Joe Burrow gets hurt, his season is in jeopardy. But I love both those players, so I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But definitely risky picks there. If we go to the start of the second round, we have 2 pretty risky picks to begin. Rattler goes with Genty, pretty early for him for a Superflex league. especially for a rookie. But I'd say even the next pick was even more risky with Dick taking Brock Bowers, when if you look, there are some absolute studs still on the board. Now, Brock Bowers is a stud in himself. Just don't know if I would have taken him there. Definitely some risk, but he could go and like break all the tight end records this year. So just risky moves, things to watch for. Caveney, your draft pick in the third might not just be risky. It might have been bad. This is the only pick on here that I might say might be bad. He definitely shouldn't go this early in Superflex. I don't even think he would go this early in normal leagues. He definitely shouldn't be going ahead of the players he did. But if you think he's going to have a big year, you definitely... I don't even know if you had to take him here. You probably could have got him in the fourth, but you definitely could have got him in the fourth. Oh, well. Just a risky move. Doesn't mean it's going to kill you. We're just talking risk here, but that definitely could be bad. I'll jump to me. I had 3 straight risky picks in a row. Drake May ahead of multiple quarterbacks who are ranked ahead of him in the fourth. RJ Harvey ahead of James Conner and other more like reliable players when he isn't the starter and might not ever be the starter. And then Justin Fields in the 6th, who's my third quarterback. The guy in my 6th round, I took a player, which means that I will always have someone on the bench from my first 6 picks. So pretty risky strategy for me there. Yep, but that's okay. I'm comfortable with it. Dick Brees Hall in the 4th round. Risky. Very risky. Could end up being bad. But you didn't have a running back yet, so you kind of needed to go for one. And then Silver Tits, Rashee Rice. We didn't know exactly what the suspension would be when you drafted him. But there was definitely much safer players on the board left. And now you're not going to have him for 6 weeks. And we did know he was going to be suspended. So that could hurt you. Thankfully, though, actually, I guess you had already taken 2 very good wide receivers. So it's not like your wide receiver core is going to suffer from it. But you could have got something else instead. But those are the risky picks. All right. So now we're doing value picks. Rattler, CeeDee Lamb, last pick of the first round. Even within Superflex, you could have got him earlier than that. Some good value. Very good value. Chris McCaffrey at the 2.9 as the RB6. Some great value there. Obviously, some risk comes with drafting CMC every year, but some very solid value for you. Next up, really, all the 3rd and 4th round quarterbacks were all pretty good value, besides me taking Drake May. But like Pat Mahomes, Dak, Bo Nix, Baker Mayfield, all in the 3rd round, could have been 2nd rounders. Kyler Murray probably should have been a 2nd round pick. And Joe V got him in the 4th. Dan Santola got Brock Purdy at the 4.6. Easily could have got him much earlier, or really that's the value that he would typically go for. So not as many, really all the value picks are quarterbacks, because the 2nd round, not a single quarterback was drafted. I got Justin Fields in the 6th round, and he's like the QB 12. It's risky because he's my 3rd quarterback, but there's no way I should have gotten him this late. So, yeah, a lot of quarterback value, positional value, only a couple picks. Just really CeeDee Lamb and Christian McCaffrey. The rest were hard to really differentiate what true value is. But we'll see. We'll see soon enough. So let's get into the positional rankings. So first we're talking best quarterback rooms. And I'll start off by saying it was very hard to pick best and worst for this. It's a fucking crapshoot. Looked a little bit at the fantasy rankings, Fantasy Pros rankings, positional rankings. But every position was pretty tough to identify the best and the worst. There's a lot of parity in our league. And that starts off with quarterback. There was no clear winner for quarterback. I mean, Andy taking the QB1 and Caleb Williams for his pair, pretty solid. It's hard to get much better than that unless you go your QB2 very early. Jalen Hurts and Brock Purdy is pretty fucking good. I'm pretty sure that's 2 QB1s right there. With Jalen Hurts having the upside of being the QB1 overall. Joe Burrow and Justin Herbert for Hopkins. Herbert was your QB1 last year. Now he's your QB2, and your QB1 is Joe Burrow. It's pretty fucking solid. And then for me, mine's a weird QB room. It's the deepest QB room our league has probably ever had. I have 3 top 15 quarterbacks. That's either crazy or fucking genius, and we will find out. But these were the best QB rooms in the league. I can't pick one that is the best. I'd probably go with Andy's, but he doesn't even have a third-string quarterback. So, actually, he just got one. He now has a backup as his third. Actually, that's always been his third-string quarterback. So, yes, it's hard to pick one clear winner, but these are the top QB rooms in our league. So now we're going worst. There really is one clear winner here. There really shouldn't even be 2 teams here. It's Rick's quarterback room. He has probably the worst quarterback room he's ever had in this league, I'm going to guess, with Penix, Cam Ward, and Aaron Rodgers being his trio. Yeah, it was by far the worst. He has the worst quarterback 1. I think he has the worst quarterback 2. And then he doesn't have the worst quarterback 3 because there's a bunch of teams that don't even have a QB3. But, yeah, by far and away, the worst quarterback room in our league is Rick. Caveney should not be standing here next to him, but he is because of how risky his situation is. He has Lamar Jackson, who was the quarterback 1 last year, and is the quarterback 2 going into drafts. But then his QB2 is Tua, who is a hit away from being done. And then his QB3 is Anthony Richardson, who might not start a game this year. So, if things go against Caveney, he will be down to 1 quarterback. So just had to note that. I don't think any other team carried as much risk for their quarterback situation than Caveney. So, those are the 2 worst quarterback rooms for very, very different reasons. Wide receiving core was the hardest one to do. There's so many good wide receivers that everyone has pretty solid wide receiver cores. Not everyone, but most of us. And it was really hard for me to differentiate who the best ones were. But to me, there's a clear top dog. And it really comes to depth. And that's Joe V. Starting off with Nico Collins at the top of his core, I think Nico Collins could be the wide receiver 1. I would have taken Nico Collins in the second round if Joe V hadn't taken him right before me. Then he's got T. Higgins, who was one of our Hooligans League MVPs last year. Cortland Sutton is his wide receiver 3, and then Jalen Waddle is his wide receiver 4. So from a depth perspective, got to give it to Joe V for the strongest wide receiver room. He's got the stud. He's got T. Higgins, who's close to a stud and becomes a fucking freak if Jamar Chase goes down. And then 2 very good wide receiver 3s that might be wide receiver 2s. So, Joe V, great wide receiver core. You're the only team getting a shout out right now. No. For worst, we got 2 teams to talk about for 2 very different reasons. Caveney. We've already talked about Marvin Harrison. Him being your wide receiver 1 already has you set up to behind in this category. Boba, relax, my guy. He hates Marvin. Then Garrett Wilson being your wide receiver 2 is pretty risky because we just don't know how much Justin Fields is going to throw the ball. We don't know how good that offense is going to be. And then Jameson Williams is actually pretty solid wide receiver 3. But this was clearly the weakest wide receiving core because you just don't really have the top end talent. But by the end of the season, it could be very good. If Marvin Harrison breaks out and Garrett Wilson just gets thrown the ball 180 times, this is going to be a very good wide receiving core. But for right now, it's at the bottom. Then Chris, you're starting 2 rookies. So this wide receiver core might be weak right now, but at the end of the year, this might be the best. Ladd McConkey was crushing it last year. Travis Hunter is a freak and could end up being the Jaguars wide receiver 1. He could pass Brian Thomas. And then Tet is going to be a ball hog in Carolina. So this is really like a struggling wide receiver core just early on only. But by the end of the year, this actually might be the best wide receiver core. So you probably shouldn't be on this page. But because of how risky and unstable it is, just going into week 1, had to call it out. All right, best running back rooms. First up is Rick. I want to say he has the number 1 running back 2 in our league and the number 1 flex in our league. And then middle of the pack RB1. But from a depth perspective, from a top-end talent, from an upside perspective, it's Rick. There's a chance that he has like 3 top 12 running backs by the end of the year. Just some studs and upside in his backfield. Then Chow gets the other honorable mention. He's got the RB1 Bijan. And then he just has like 2 pretty steady running backs in high-powered offenses that went later in drafts with James Cook and Isaiah Pacheco. Yes, Pacheco's coming off the injury, and James Cook probably isn't going to score as many touchdowns as he had last year, but if the Chiefs' offense is good and Pacheco gets the ball in the goal line and James Cook continues to get touchdowns, like, this could be a pretty scary running back trio. And I also think that Chow was like top 3 for all of these 3 positions for running back 1, 2, and flex. So 2 very good running back stables right here. Last up, we have the worst running back rooms. And these running back rooms really are just here because they are not scary. Radler, Ashton Genty being your number 1 is solid. I said it was risky, but he's good and should be getting the ball a ton. But then after that, it gets scary for you. Braylon Allen being your RB2 when he's an RB2 for his team. He might even be the RB3 because Justin Fields is probably their running back 1. Then Breece Hall, then Braylon Allen. So, yeah, you have the shallowest running back room in our league, I'm pretty sure. And then Dick, I think you have the best running back. Because I'm not even sure who is your best running back. It's either DeAndre Swift, who you drafted much later than Breece Hall, not much later, a couple rounds, or Breece Hall, who we've already talked about as a risky pick to begin with. So, yeah, I'm not sure who your best running back is. But at least you have 3 startable running backs, is what I guess I would say. Radler doesn't even have that. So I'm not sure who's the worst here, which running back I'd rather have. But you guys definitely get it for worst running back room in the league. So now, let's wrap this up and get into the power rankings. All right? First power rankings of the year. It's not going to be our traditional power rankings. We're going to break it up by tiers. So, for power rankings, I'm doing them a little differently since it's only the preseason. This is for week 1. We don't have much to work off of. The way I'm doing it is I took Wally's rankings. Thank you, Hopkins, for sharing that with the league. He gave me a little something to work with. Then I'm taking Fantasy Pros rankings for the draft and then adding in Fantasy Pros Week 1 rankings. And I took an average of the 3 rankings. So if you were first in Wally's picks, second for Fantasy Pros Draft, and third for Fantasy Pros Week 1, you'd add those up, average them out, and you'd average a 2. And that's your power score. And so once every team had a power score and average ranking, I broke them up into tiers based on what it's looking like, according to Walter and Fantasy Pros. So we got 4 different tiers. Let's dive in. I'm not sure I fully agree with how everything's shaping up, but this is what the experts are saying. So let's dive in. Tier 1. And overall number 1, the number 1 draft pick, Andy. Andy had a power score of 2.7, had very good rankings across all 3 lists. Very good-looking squad, pretty balanced. He's been talking up his team a lot. I don't think I would have his team as number 1, but the data says they are. Then very close behind, we got Dan Santola. He's always high in these rankings, especially early in the season. Just right behind him with a power score of 3. He is number 2 in the power rankings, and these are our best teams in the league. There's a pretty big gap from a power score ranking between tier 1 and tier 2. So let's get to tier 2. Now, tier 2 is where I start to really not like how things are shaping up. We have Dickey at the 3 spot with a power score of 4. Then Chow at 5 at a 4.7. Chris is tied with him at 4.7. And then Joe V is a 5.3. We're in the top 6 teams in the power rankings, and I am nowhere to be seen. The Hooligoat is nowhere to be seen. It's very interesting. Very interesting. And I don't like it. But it's okay. It's week 0 right now. We're just starting week 1. These power rankings don't mean shit. But yes, these are the top 6 teams. We had Andy, Dan Santola, Dick, Chow, Chris, Jovi. So let's move to the 6 teams that are currently not projected to make the playoffs. Tier 3. Tier 3. It's a much wider gap in teams, but just had to make it fit. We had Radler at a power score of 6. He probably could have been tier 2. He honestly probably should be tier 2. He's closer to them than he is to me, who has a power score of 7.3, putting me at the 8th best team in the league, or the 5th worst, depending on how you want to look at it. And then Caven, he had a power score of 9. These are just imaginary, arbitrary numbers. They don't mean anything. But it doesn't feel good to be down here. But the way I'm looking at it is I'm not tier 4. And then for tier 4, we got Rick with a power score of 10. The fact that he is in the tier 4 makes me feel much better about being tier 3 because he is the Hooligoat. Hopkins is ranked 11th in the power rankings with 10.3. He's the reigning champ. His own tool marked him last. Walter Pick said he had the worst team in the league. So, tier 4, we got some solid managers in there. And then we got Silverman. Last in the power rankings. Was basically 11 or 12 for all 3 of the lists. Probably because he only did 1 mock draft. He did basically 0 prep, had never heard of the major rookies. Who's Amarian Hampton? Who's RJ Harvey? Who's Ted McCullen? He probably knew who that was. But he didn't really do much prep. And here he is at the bottom of the power rankings with no one to blame but himself. Boba, I know. The dude doesn't try hard enough. And then gets upset when his team stinks. But those are the power rankings. We'll get back to our normal power rankings once I get back to a real computer. This has definitely been my least favorite recording of all time. if you could only see how I've had to put this together, you probably would have said don't even bother, because this is taken me the longest to record this, when this has been a pretty easy type of content to go through. But it's okay. NFL starts today, so there's no way I can complain. But last up, let's just get into week 1. All right, so it is, what time is it right now? It's 1:49. We are so close to football, which means we are very close to week 1. And for week 1 matchups, we got some good ones. We got me versus Rick. 2 very risky draft strategies. Rick just didn't draft quarterbacks until he had to, and I took 3 of them early. Then we got Dan Santola versus Dickey. Dickey had some risky draft picks, but I still believe he was a tier 2 team in the power rankings. Dan Santola, tier 1. Very strong matchup there. Then we got Caveney versus Chow. Bugsy the butt plug versus Ricky White and Sticky Tan. I don't remember much about their teams because I'm flustered from how much fucking maneuvering I've been doing. But I'm excited to see who takes that one. Then we got Jimmy 2 times, the reigning champ, versus Joe V, the former reigning champ, the reigning loser. Great matchup there. Boba, I'm excited too. Then we got Radler versus Andy. Andy loves his team. It would be fucking awesome to see Radler just beat him down in week 1. And last, we have the last ranked team in the power rankings, Silver Tits El Chapo's Chode versus Nicky Stinky Dinky Santoro. Chris. So that's going to be it. Those are our matchups. Quick reminder, we also have the matchup against the league median. We also have the Survivor contest begins. So it's not just about you and your head-to-head matchup. There's other shit going on too. Please start Venmoing your league dues, $230. Get your permission slip signed for the trade party, and stay tuned for a document about punishments and making sure we have the right shit listed out. That's the episode. I made it through. This was a fucking battle, but we finally made it. So I'm not gonna complain. Hooligans, let's fucking do it. Greatest league in the world begins today. Let's fucking go.
You want to play games? Okay. I'll play with you. Come on. Okay. Do you want to play rough? Okay. Uno. Say hello to my little friend. Okay. You want to play rough? Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yolanda.